Welcome to this video. We have already learned how to describe line graphs that show past trends. Now let's explore line graphs that include future trends. In IELTS Writing Task 1, you may sometimes encounter line graphs that include future trends or projections. This video will provide a step-by-step guide to describing such graphs, including the sentence structures and language that can be used to explain future trends effectively. Let's start by examining the graph first. Look at the graph on the slide. Today, we will analyze a line graph that illustrates the projected investments in three key sectors: technology, education, and renewable energy from 2010 to 2040, which is over a 30-year time frame. The values are measured in billions of dollars, and the graph presents both past trends, that is from 2010 to the present, and future projections, that is from the present to 2040. Let's begin by looking at how to write the introduction, then move on to the overall trends before diving into the details. We have already learned how to write the introduction for line graphs. So here, it is no different from that. We simply need to paraphrase the question statement. One way to write the introduction is: the given line graph illustrates both past and estimated investments in technology, education, and renewable energy sectors between 2010 and 2040, measured in billions of dollars. This follows the same approach we used for past trends. This introduction effectively paraphrases the question, adds relevant details about the sectors, and keeps it clear and concise. The changed words are highlighted in different colors for you to see how the question statement is paraphrased. Now that we have introduced the graph, let's move on to how to write a clear overview. In the overview, we summarize the key trends without too many details. Here, our goal is to highlight the general patterns rather than focus on specific numbers. First, we begin with the word overall as usual. Then we identify the main trends in the graph. Looking at the graph, we can see that investment in the renewable energy sector increased dramatically. However, investment in the technology sector increased gradually. Similarly, investment in the education sector grew steadily. Now let's put these trends together to form a well-structured overview. A possible overview could be: overall, investments in all three sectors have grown and are forecast to rise further. Renewable energy investment is anticipated to see the most dramatic growth. However, technology and education sector investments will increase steadily, with technology overtaking education by the end of the period. Pause the video here, read the overview, and compare it with the graph. Now let's try to understand how the overview is written. Notice that in the first sentence we have used the present perfect tense, have grown, to describe investments up to the present. Then, we used future expressions such as are forecast to, is anticipated to, and will increase for future trends. These structures help describe what's likely to happen in the coming years based on projections. Let's take a moment to look at the language we use when describing future trends. Since we are discussing projections and expected trends, we commonly use passive structures as given here on the slide, such as is expected to, is projected to, is anticipated to, and so on. Or we can use simple future tense, that is, will plus base verb, or future perfect tense, that is, will plus have plus past participle, for clear future trends. For example, in this paragraph, we wrote, renewable energy investment is anticipated to see the most dramatic growth. Here, we used is anticipated to, which is a passive structure to describe a future trend based on data. In the same way, we wrote, technology and education sector investments will increase steadily. In this case, we used will increase, which is in the simple future tense, to describe a future trend. Now, as we move on to describing the details of the graph, we will continue using these structures to describe past trends, future predictions, and key comparisons. Let's start with technology and education investments and see how these structures can be applied in the description. Now that we have written the introduction and overview, let's move on to describing the trends in detail. Since technology and education investments follow a similar trend, we will discuss them together in one paragraph and analyze renewable energy investments separately as it follows a distinct trend. We can start this way. To begin with, technology investment rose steadily from around $30 billion in 2010 to $90 billion in 2020, while education investment grew gradually from around $180 billion to $220 billion. In this sentence, we introduce the initial values of investments in both sectors. Then we can describe the changes this way. By 2025, technology investment is set to reach just over $150 billion, whereas education investment will climb to almost $300 billion. We can also highlight important points in the graph where one category surpasses another. For example, we can say, notably, in 2035, technology investment is projected to surpass education investment. After that, we can write about the final values of both investments. We can write it as, finally, by 2040, technology and education investments will have reached $600 billion and $500 billion, respectively. Now, let's look at the complete first body paragraph on the next slide. Read the paragraph and compare it with the graph to see how the trends are described. Pay attention to the sentence structures used. We used the past tense for past trends, and those past expressions are highlighted in yellow. For future projections, we use different structures. Notice how we use passive forms such as is set to and is projected to, and the future perfect tense like will have reached in the paragraph. We also used the simple future tense as in will climb. The expressions used to describe future trends or projections are highlighted in green. Make sure to use appropriate expressions or sentence structures depending on whether you are describing past trends or future trends. Now that we have covered technology and education investments, let's move on to analyzing renewable energy investment, which follows a very different trend. So far, we have discussed technology and education investments, which showed a steady upward trend. Now let's turn our attention to renewable energy investment, which follows a very different trend. Unlike the previous two sectors, this investment has experienced a much sharper rise over time. To introduce this contrast, we can start the paragraph with a transition word, such as conversely or in contrast. For example, we can say, conversely, renewable energy investment started at just around $10 billion in 2010 and grew at a steady pace to reach around $60 billion by 2020. Moving forward, this upward trend is expected to continue. So we can say, by 2025, it is expected to exceed $160 billion and is predicted to surpass technology investment in the same year and education investment by 2030. This growth accelerates, and renewable energy investment is expected to rise significantly beyond 2030. So considering this, we can say, finally, by 2040, renewable energy investment will have soared to over $1,200 billion, becoming the highest among the three sectors. Now let's look at the complete second body paragraph on the next slide. Go through the paragraph and compare it with the graph to see how the trends are described. Pay close attention to the sentence structures used. For past trends, we used the past tense, and those past expressions are highlighted in yellow. Notice how we use passive structures such as is expected to and is predicted to describe projections, as well as the future perfect tense like will have soared to emphasize completed trends by a specific time. The expressions used to describe future trends and projections are highlighted in green. So the point is to use the appropriate expressions or sentence structures based on whether you are describing past or future trends. Once you have done this, we will look at the complete description on the next slide. Well, here is the introduction plus overview and two body paragraphs. Now that we have seen the complete description, let's examine the structures used to describe future trends. On this slide, passive structures used to describe future trends are highlighted in green, while future tense expressions are highlighted in yellow. Future perfect tense expressions are marked in turquoise. Along with these structures, you will also notice verb plus adverb combinations and article plus adjective plus noun combinations, which are highlighted in pink. For example, we used rose steadily, grew gradually, the most dramatic growth, and a steady pace. So don't forget to use a variety of sentence structures to achieve a high score in writing task 1. Pause here and review the highlighted structures multiple times to reinforce your learning. Then use these expressions to create your own sentences, experimenting with different variations by substituting different expressions randomly. Now let's look at how connectors or linking phrases are used in this description to make it more cohesive. These connectors are highlighted in gray. Observe how words like however, whereas, and conversely highlight contrasts, while to begin with and finally help sequence the trends clearly. We have already explored how to describe future trends in the description. Now let's look at different ways to express them. On this slide, you can see 3 sentences taken from the description, along with 3 alternative ways to phrase each one. Let's look at the first example. Instead of renewable energy investment is anticipated to see the most dramatic growth, you could say renewable energy investment is expected to display the most dramatic growth, or renewable energy investment will have seen the most dramatic growth by 2040, or renewable energy investment will experience the most significant growth among all sectors. Each variation presents the trend in a different way. By changing the way we phrase sentences, we can avoid repetition and make our descriptions more flexible. Now look at the other examples of variations on this slide. This way, try to experiment with passive structures, future simple tense, and future perfect tense to create your own variations for other examples. Now that we have explored different ways to describe trends and practiced using a variety of sentence structures, it's time for you to apply what you have learned. To put this into practice, let's move on to the next task. On this slide, you will see a new line graph with future trends. Your task is to analyze the graph carefully and write a well-structured description. Start with the introduction, where you paraphrase the given title and briefly explain what the graph represents. Then move on to the overview, where you summarize the main trends without going into specific numbers. Identify the most noticeable changes, whether any trends are increasing, decreasing, or remaining steady. After that, describe the body paragraphs in detail. Make sure to use past tense if any past trends are shown. Use passive structures such as is expected to, is projected to, or is forecast to for future trends. Incorporate the simple future tense for general predictions like will increase or will decline. Include the future perfect tense for completed actions by a certain point in time, such as will have doubled or will have dropped. As you write, pay attention to sentence variety and avoid repeating the same structures. Try rephrasing sentences in different ways to improve fluency and accuracy. Once you have completed your description, take a moment to review and refine your work. Compare it with the examples we discussed earlier and check if you have used the appropriate grammar and vocabulary. Now, take a deep breath, focus on the graph, and begin writing. Thank you for watching. I hope this video was helpful. Good luck and happy learning. See you in the next video.